All right, so today's tech tip is going to be on trying to determine the health of your motor. Specifically for me, this motor was just built, so I want to make sure everything's wearing in together as it's supposed to. And the two things that I check is compression and leak down. And the tools you're going to need for that: a compression checker, which this is a cheap Harbor Freight deal. I really don't care if it's accurate or not. I just want to make sure that from cylinder to cylinder it's the same or similar, within 5% or 2%. So I got a cheap Harbor Freight one deal for that. And this is a leak down tester, and that's gonna check to make sure that you don't have excessive leak down through either valve or rings. So this motor's got 6 passes on it. Not very many, but it should be enough to have the ring seat. Again, that's more of a compression issue than a loss issue. We are going to check both today and give you an idea what you're supposed to do. The first thing I did for this motor was I took all the plugs out. You don't have to do this, you can do it one by one. And yes, these are very rich. We're dealing with that, and you can check the other Norwalk video out for what we're dealing with. This is actually idle. On a full pass, it's brown. At idle, it's black. So nonetheless, we're gonna fix that on the dyno. The last thing you're gonna need is a piece of paper and a pen to mark down everything that you find. So we're gonna go to cylinder 1. Get this down in here. And again, you can use, some people put a little squirt of oil in the cylinder wall to help it seal the rings, give you a little bit more accurate reading. But again, I'm not so worried about accuracy as I'm worried about consistency. So the gauge reads 0, truck's in park, and I believe the truck is on, should be. Yep. You're gonna open your throttles, and you're gonna turn it over until you get peak. Peaks 120. That's quite low for a racing engine until you add this nice little blower on top, and you want to have a little bit lower compression. So the rule of thumb for this number is if you divide it by 14.7, you're going to get how much compression ratio you have to 1. So if we do that math real quick, we're gonna come over here and we're gonna mark 120 on the compression tester, and then we're gonna take, I'm guessing I have 9.5 to 1, that's what the truck was built for. So if we take 120 and divide that by 14.7, it's actually showing 8.1 to 1, which again, rule of thumb. Nonetheless, so we got our first data point, which is the 120. And again, these rings may not have been set yet. And if you get a weird reading, if you throw a little bit of oil in there, we can see the difference. If you get a weird reading like that, which I don't think it's weird, I think it's partially ring seat and then the motor's lower compression. You can also squirt a little bit of oil in the cylinder wall, just like that. And that's gonna help seat your rings. Again, wide open throttle. So we got like 125 on that one. So we know the cylinder is, the oil helped a little bit, but I'm not necessarily worried about whether this is accurate or not. I just want to make sure that all the cylinders are the same, or within 5 to 2% the same. So on Chris's motor, we did his a few minutes ago, and we had a 145. And if we take 145, and again, this is all rule of thumb, and it's also based upon cam size and overlap and everything else. We do 145 divided by 14.7, we get 9.8 to 1. Rule of thumb, it's not 100% accurate, it just gives you a general idea. So what we will do with the compression is we'll go all the way around, do all the compression, and we'll mark all the numbers on the paper and make sure they're all within 2 to 5% of what cylinder. All right, the next thing we do is we're gonna use a leak down tester. And what this is gonna show is if you're getting a bunch of air going past your rings or your valves. And it gives you the idea of if you have a valve issue, if you have a ring issue, you can determine that be a problem. So we're gonna take that line and put it in there. And we're going to take, the good thing about having a blower is you get to turn the crank right off the top here. And we're gonna make sure that we're on a compression stroke. So the exhaust is opening right now, as you can tell, and the exhaust is closing. So this is gonna be an intake stroke right there. Intake is closing, and now we are on compression, right there. Gonna hook up our gauge and our air line. Now this is a little bit difficult, trying to do it so everybody can see, is you need to hold the motor and so it can't turn as much as you can. And then you're gonna put air in that cylinder. It's actually getting forced down. So we're gonna hold it so it can't turn. To 100 PSI. And as you can see on this other needle, it shows 95 PSI. Okay, so that's the percentage that we are leaking air. 5% is really good. It's not terrible. Obviously you'd want a little bit higher if it's a non-blower motor, but the rings on this is set at a 25 gap, 0.025 gap. So you're gonna get blow by from that until the rings are heated up. So 5% is good. Not mad about that at all. All right, now that you're good and sweaty and you got all that done, these are the numbers we came up with this motor. Everything had about 120 PSI. There was one cylinder, number 4, had 118. Again, really close. And I'm not worried about whether this is accurate or not. I just want to make sure that every cylinder is the same. On the leak down test, we struggle with that. It's that motor, it's tough to hold the motor back. We made it easier on ourselves because we have to retorque the heads. We just went ahead and took all the rockers off. You don't have to do that. You just need to turn the motor over until it's on the compression stroke to do the leak down. We found everything was 5%, except for cylinder number 2 had 7%. That's within a variance of maybe a little bit of oil or a little bit less pressure in the system of air that caused that. So this motor I feel is pretty healthy. The last thing we need to check is the oil filter. Cut it open, check the pleats. Okay, so I just realized I don't have a filter for my truck, so we're gonna use Chris's filter. We just cut his open to check the life of his motor as well. So first thing you need on this tool is you're gonna need it's a oil filter cutting tool. It's a lot like a big pipe cutter, but for oil filters. Stick it on there, spin it around until the filter's cut, just like that. You're gonna take the filter out, and then you're gonna look through every pleat, just like this, and then check to see if you find any debris, anything that's of note. And also you're gonna pour out the filter canister and you're gonna look at the oil. Now we know we may be dealing with a cam problem with this, and as you can see there's some sparkling material at the bottom. Generally I'll pull it to one side and anything heavy is gonna be laying there, then I'll look at it. Although there is some sparklies in there, we've determined that it's not so bad that we're not going to continue to run this motor. I think he'll be all right. What we think's going on is I think we may have flat spotted the cam, and it's just getting worse over time. But right now I think we're going to run it. It's not like it's grinding material for the bearings yet, but it's certainly sparkly, like glitter at a strip club.